Pete Fletcher of ATG Cast is a Disney shill. Oh yeah, big time Disney shill.
I believe that you are a certified daddy. Like Pedro Pascal's a daddy. Like,
All right.
Yeah, certified daddy.
He interviewed this guy. Like, how does this guy, who's not even monetized on YouTube, get this interview?
So how did you know? Because I'm a nerd.
The only live Star Wars fan talk show that takes your calls. Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time.
You will not meet nicer people. Whoop, I'm at point. Oh, there and there.
All right, where's something that he was shilling? I know I saw some, like, bad stuff from him this week. He got another interview. What a shill.
Yeah. And now, I get to cap it off with the best of all and be coming back to a show that I dearly love and admire. So thanks for having me.
We keep it honest and real, make room for constructive disagreement, and have a zero tolerance for jerks.
I'm an asshole, just so everybody knows.
We are OG OT fans.
Wedge was obviously a character that you had to use if you were going to do Rogue Squadrons.
And we recognize the gift of Star Wars living on for another generation and beyond.
The galaxy isn't growing to push people out. It's growing to let more people come in.
I'm not seeing anything like too chilly, even though it's like, it's bad. See, he knows he's a shill. He like embraces that he's a shill.
No.
No one watches his channel. He's getting all these interviews on his channel. Like, how does he pull that off? He's definitely connected, and he's a shill.
I have had the best time ever on Around the Galaxy. Thank you so much.
We've pushed you over the edge, Chris.
On the dark side.
Luke Skywalker. I'm an asshole, just so everybody knows. Welcome to Force Connect, the only live Star Wars fan conversation talk show that takes your calls, hangs out with you every Friday night live. Well, we weren't here last Friday, so it's not every Friday night. It's most Friday nights. Look, it's a high percentage of Friday nights, and we're here hanging out tonight. And it's myself, Pete Fletcher, my good friend Nick Milkey. Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
And you see a new and different and vibrant face, Mr. Joe Barksdale, hanging out with us tonight. Joe, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys so much for having me. It's good to be here.
We're just excited to have you back. Joe was on Around the Galaxy a couple weeks ago. He was on a couple years ago. And he's back. He wants to hang out with us. And how can we say no to Joe? It's hard to say no to Joe.
Right.
So.
It's a guarantee that we're going to laugh and have fun when Joe shows up. So when you bring on somebody who has played professional sports, is a musician, is a stand-up comic, how do you go wrong with that combination?
Joe, how can we go wrong with that combination?
Probably
give him a minute.
Too much cognac. No, I'm just kidding. You can't go wrong with that combination.
That's awesome. Well, cool. So tonight like we said, we missed last week. But this week we're going to talk a little bit about the new Star Wars video game Outlaws that came out. There's some news that came out this week. We'll talk a little bit about that. And of course, in the last segments, we are going to take your calls as we do every single week. But before we get started, we have to do the official thing that you do when you have a podcast or a show. You have to do your social media. You can do your housekeeping. We want to talk about. Go to the SSWNetwork.com for more information about the show, Around the Galaxy, Podcast The Whills, all the stuff that we do. Patreon.com if you want to become a part of the family. For $3 a month, you can be part of the show when we do live recordings for the Around the Galaxy show. And for Podcast The Whills, we have an interview coming up on Monday with an author. We'll have some more information for you on that near the end of the show. Check us out on all the social medias at the SSW Network. And hey, listen, if you like shirts that say weird things and interesting things on it, go check them out. Go to the SSW Network, our shop. You can either get there from the website or you can go to the shop, SSW Network shop.com. You can do that.
Easy for you to say.
It's not easy for me to say, Nick. That's the problem. That's the problem. It's been, it's one of those, it's been a long week. We got rid of the kids this evening. My daughter was somewhere, my son was somewhere, so me and my wife, we went out for dinner. I had too many glasses of wine, or maybe not enough, and now I'm ready for the show. So this should be good.
Did you drive home?
I did not drive home, no, because I'm responsible, Joe, a little bit. I'm not terribly responsible. At times I can be responsible.
Just the right amount.
Right. Just the right amount to stay out of jail. That's all you need.
Right. Yeah. You got to find that fine line, and then you can go from there. But we also want to announce that we have one of these things happening again this year. Podathon is back. It is coming in September 9th, 2023. Podathon is the annual. This is the fourth year we're doing it, and we benefit Make-A-Wish. Last year, we raised almost $17,000 for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Nick, what do we got going on this year? Do we have anything we can share at this moment? It's still really early. We're just starting to have the meetings.
It is very early. We've been having some meetings. What I will say is this is the fourth Podathon. You don't want to rest on your laurels. You want to continue to improve. And there's some new and exciting stuff on deck. You're going to see some familiar faces. You're going to see some new faces. You're also going to see some changes in programming. We're really excited. We've had some great ideas just, as we've been brainstorming, getting ready. And I'm excited for this, just to do it again, to have another event. And most importantly, to raise money for Make-A-Wish. We have done such great stuff over the last 3 previous years. And I'm excited to see where it goes now. So the only tease you really get is the date. Mark your calendars, get ready, but be excited to see, some new stuff, something a little bit exciting, something a little bit different than what you've been used to before.
Yeah, it's going to be
that was the most cryptic. So what can we tell them? Well, see some people.
Always leave them wanting more, Joe. That's the key to this whole
thing. Well, I mean, Joe, you're not familiar with it. Last year we so this is the fourth year we're doing it, and it's literally an online all day thing. I'll probably drag you into it somewhere, man, just to get some additional help. But it's
I'll be one of the faces you don't know.
Spoiled. Over the first 3 years, we've raised about $27,000 for Make-A-Wish. So we want to keep blasting that number up and up wherever we can. So, but yeah, so follow. You can go to thepodathon.com, or you can follow the Podathon on all the social medias, or you can just follow us. We'll keep you up to date on all the good stuff happening. So Nick, did you have a toast for us this evening?
I do have a toast for us this evening, and I spent a part of the afternoon trying to figure out what was my toast going to be. And then the light bulb went off, inspired by a little bit of pre-gaming, as we like to call it in the industry. The light bulb went off, and it occurred to me, sometimes it's a person, sometimes it's an event, sometimes it's, it can cover a lot of bases. What we're going to toast to is June birthdays in Star Wars, because as I pulled up the list of kind of big things that have happened in the month of June, I'm just going to rattle these off for us really quickly. These are all people who are very, very key and connected to Star Wars who were born in the month of June. Gareth Edwards, John Dykstra, a person you may have heard of named Kathleen Kennedy, Daniel Logan, Dave Filoni, Natalie Portman, Claudia Gray, noted Star Wars author, Ralph McQuarrie, one of my all-time favorites,
Wow.
does all the concept art. Steve Sansweet, your friend and former boss,
Yes. Nice.
was born in June. Ralph Brown, who, if you don't know Ralph Brown played Rick Ollier in the prequel movies, Captain Exposition, as we like to call him, as they fly in and he says, the entire planet's one big city. Like, he's that guy. Nathan Hamill, son of our favorite Jedi Luke Skywalker and Mark Hamill. J.J. Abrams, and then also Mr. Ben Daniels, who played General Anton Merrick in Rogue One, the mustachioed X-Wing pilot. So that's a pretty heavy lineup of June Star Wars birthdays. So I'm going to raise my glass and all of our glasses tonight to all of the June Star Wars birthdays. Happy birthday, cheers, and happy Star Wars.
Happy Star Wars. Chin chin.
You guys look so classy with the glass drinks. I look like an angsty teenager. Mom never lets me drive the Cadillac.
Joe stood outside the liquor store and was like, hey man, can you pick me up a bottle? I don't care. Plastic vodka bottle's fine. I'll take it.
Whatever.
I'm just impressed. I'm just impressed you didn't spill that on your bike riding back home with that cup.
Golly gee, sir, I gotta get home for the lights come on. Like, aren't you a grown man? Like, no.
No.
Don't mind me. Pay no attention.
Oh man. So thanks for hanging out with us, everybody. We are going to go to our first break, and when we come back, we're going to start talking about Star Wars Outlaws and video games, and also want to talk about some of the crazy, weird rumors that hit this week. So we're going to be back in just 1 minute with more Force Connect from the SSW Network. And we are back hanging out with all of you. We have a bunch of people in the chat tonight. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Thanks if you're listening to this on the replay. That's the other thing I neglected to mention. We do now have a Force Connect podcast stream. We're trying to slowly separate around the galaxy and Force Connect into their own stream. So look for that. We'll put the link up for that on our socials over the next couple days. But Nick and Joe, did you know that the Acolyte has been canceled? Did you know that Leslie Headland has been fired? Yes. And that they are only? It's true. That's what Doomcock said apparently. So. He's not,
well, anybody,
Joe, I wish I was making that name up, buddy. I wish I was making
anybody
that
with
name
cock
up.
in their name has to be right. I mean,
that is the most sexually aggressive leaker name. Doomcock.
Yeah.
Remember when the news used to be reliable and reputable?
We've come a long way from Walter Cronkite to Doomcock.
Well, a lot of people don't realize that Walter Cronkite's original name was Doomcock on CBS.
I'm sorry, Doomcock is my father. I'm Walter Cronkite.
I'm Mr. Cronkite.
I can't take that honestly seriously. Like, reporting live, Doomcock. Like, what is so scary about it? Doesn't matter. How you doing, Jasmine? How you? All right now.
But Joe, Joe, do you follow any of the rumors online as a Star Wars fan, or do you have better things to do with your time?
I used to,
yeah,
but it was kind of like I mean, like you said, when you got to sift through all the news that's not real and then that kind of stuff. And too, honestly, I don't have even if it's solid information, I don't have patience already. So
right,
just tell me when it drops, because otherwise I'm just be waking up every day movie's not dropping until 2026. All right, we got but yeah, I don't have the patience to know about things before they come out.
Yeah, well, and especially because, and I think I said this a couple of weeks ago, the Star Wars seems to attract news about leaks and changes behind the scenes and director changes and writer changes and delays and things like that. And the reality is this happens on every film. Like every movie, every major movie has issues getting out the door. You just don't hear about it. And the problem is you got people who are so obsessed and have figured out the clickbait algorithm that they can continue to build this story, this tapestry of bullshit, where there is story after story, and you can make a story. Look, if I follow enough of any industry, you can write your own narrative, and Star Wars just continues to make money for the Doomcocks of the world and the Melvins and whatnot, and so there's really not a lot of credence to be put into that. And I think the problem too with it is they've also harnessed this sort of aggression and anger about just sort of politics and have thrown that in there as well. And so, like, for example, one of the things with the Acolyte is the people who respond. So you'll see a headline, you'll see a quote about Acolyte, being delayed or being canceled, and all the comments underneath it are things about like, yeah, that's great, it was too woke, it was this, it was that, and it's really frustrating and stupid that and it creates more noise. And to your point, Joe, it makes it really hard to even keep up with what's really happening. So the best thing to do is just wait to hear what you hear from Lucasfilm and run with that.
This is very random, but when you were just talking about that, I was thinking like, wow, that's really a testament to how dedicated and involved the fan base is, that you got people like this that are able to like make a living doing this. But then it led me to the thought of like, how many more generations do you think Star Wars got?
Great question. Yeah. I'm not sure. I mean, I think we have, like, my son's generation, he's into it, but the question is like, will he stay into it? Right.
Yeah.
So
when it's time to make some purchases, hey, I'm working now. Do I care enough to buy my own movie ticket? But I'm thinking even with the closing of the hotel that we talked about last time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, that was just a lot to begin with, honestly. But yeah, that was something I was thinking about. Like, I'm like, will my grandkids be talking about Star Wars? Because the fan base part of it, like you're talking about too, we got to pick a different word besides woke. Because like it's just woke and shill and literally are the three most misused words. Oh my God, let's not even get started with that. But yeah, that was something that I was just randomly thinking about. Like, I wonder how many.
Well, and I think it really brings up an interesting point, Joe, is especially for where is the line when the toxic fan bases, the people like the Doomcocks, the Zeros, not even the people that are doing it necessarily to make a living as a streamer, as a YouTuber, as a whatever, but the people that are literally making their entire existence in any kind of social media space about crapping on, hating on, ruining this thing at what point does the general fan base go, you know what, it's not worth it, and I'm out, and it kills the whole thing.
Sports, it never will. Like, it'll never shut down a fan base. Like sports, sports commentators and people who write, sports media, it gets really toxic. But like, people don't stop watching sports. I think some of it too is being able to filter through it. Because like, I didn't even know who Doomcock was until.
Sure.
I'm glad that I do now.
And that is another good analogy, because there are plenty of us that have sports teams. I'm an Auburn fan, I'm an Atlanta Braves fan, and I've spent more time than I wish to acknowledge with those teams being terrible, but I still stuck with those teams and said, but it's my thing. It's my team. It's who I cheer for. It's who I root for. So, if you're truly passionate about something, of course, you're going to stick with it, through its difficult points. And so, luckily for me, the Alabama fans that I live with in the state haven't made me not be an Auburn fan, but I've had my moments. We'll be fair.
I did that.
And Joe knows because he played at LSU, so he gets exactly what I'm talking about.
But that's why I thought about it. I'm like, Star Wars is at that point where it's become like this big enough entity that it can also foster and nurse toxicity without being a detriment to itself. It's pretty impressive.
You know, the fact that you didn't know those names that we said, which to those of, and I think it's a really important thing to remember, and I have to remind myself this on a regular basis. There's like this really closed world of social media Star Wars conversation, and you look at it and you see these guys, and the challenge is you got somebody like a Star Wars Theory, for example, who has 3 million followers. He's got the most followers of any Star Wars channel, and he's got his opinions, and they're not all wrong, and they're not all, and nobody's opinion is wrong, but they're not. But he tends to feed into the anti-Disney, anti-sequel fan base, and I wonder if there's what the detriment is to that, right? Is it really having a long-term effect? Is it hurting the Star Wars fandom, or is it just another guy with an opinion? I mean, 3 million followers, that is a huge number, you know?
It's a dude with an opinion. And I mean, it's like you said, like, and I know tech channels do a really good job of doing this. They'll always like interject, you know, in the middle of a monologue, like, by the way, this is my opinion. Like, this is not the gospel, you know? But I kind of, because, you know, like I want to say he's like my age, or maybe like a year younger or older.
Who's that?
I think
Theory?
Star Wars Theory.
Yeah.
I think, and I would say like I think some of it's just emotional involvement too. Whenever you're emotionally invested in anything, you're gonna have some strong feelings one way or another. But I mean, from what I've seen of his stuff, like I wouldn't consider him like toxic or anything like that, because I've been following him for a minute, and like I remember he used to get bullied like bad. You know what I mean? Like people would be in the comments talking crazy, and I mean, it takes one to know one. Like I was bullied when I grew up, you know, growing up too. Like you can see the signs. But I think that's where some of that passion comes from too, because if you have been getting bullied, you don't have a voice, and this is like your first time where actually people give a damn about about what you're talking about. You know?
Yeah.
I think that may be part of it too. But I'll say this: I've never met a Star Wars fan in public that was an asshole.
But
and that was going to make exactly one of my points. I was going to say two things. One, I think your point about having a passion as relates to somebody, especially like Star Wars Theory. Certainly, there's a passion there to a degree, to whatever. I think the other half of that coin, or other side of that coin, is he also knows what he's doing. He knows how to push the buttons. He knows how to drive the algorithm. He knows how to hit those buzzwords and those things that bump, you know, that engagement up, because this is what he does. But I will say, I agree with you 100%, because the 2 Star Wars celebrations I've been to, when there's tens of 20,000 people a day at Star Wars, there wasn't a single person that was in a bad mood and complaining about the wokeness of Star Wars and complaining about, you know, the whatever. It was people going, holy shit, it's Star Wars and we're all here together. Like, let's hang out.
But I would argue those are the numbers too. I mean, obviously, like it's not everybody, but I would argue a large number of people who are, when I say invested, I mean like you put some kind of money you've earned into Star Wars, whether you bought movie tickets, video games, some merch. I would argue most of them ain't even on social media like that.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, and I know it seems, you know, like big to us, but like I remember, you know, being at I've been to Galaxy's Edge on East Coast and West Coast. And both times, like, yeah, you'll have people that'll, you know, oh, I didn't like this or I didn't like that. We'll all find things we don't like. But for the most part, like you said, you just got a bunch of people that are happy to be, you know, part of a story that they can comprehend and, you know, they know and understand.
Yep. No, and it's interesting that you said that, because I agree 100% that it's not in person. People are very different. And I think it more becomes when people start to apply politics and hate to things that it's a real problem. Because again, I have opinions. I'm the first to admit my feelings about Rise of Skywalker, and I'm also the first to admit that when I walked out of the prequels, I was like, that's not what I wanted, and I did not love them, and it took me a while to get around to them. So opinions are good. we literally, like, that's what we try to do here on the show, is we try to allow people to have differing opinions. It's once you start to become
an asshole.
Yeah, an asshole. Right. And no asshole policy is very important to make this stuff work.
Right.
And so that's just, and it is interesting about some of the people who have, I think there's a couple things to your point, Joe, about Star Wars Theory. Once he started making money, he then started to become a little bit more
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie, I ain't seen a
button
video
pushing.
in 2 years.
Yeah, no, that's totally cool. And honestly, I don't hate everything he says. The problem is when he starts to lean toward so for example, and this is, I don't care if it's him, I don't care if it's the three of us on the screen. Once I start to disrespect somebody else's opinion, and you nailed it, Joe. He does very carefully throw in but this is my opinion. This is my opinion. Everybody's allowed to have their own opinion. But once you start to, I can say, you can have your own opinion, and then you say, well, I love The Rise of Skywalker, and I can be like, well, that's not Star Wars as far as I'm concerned. You're kind of stupid for liking it. Then everything that I've said about it's your opinion goes out the window. So it's an interesting thing that's happening there. But it's I don't know.
This is where therapy comes in, because we're forgetting about that too, like the trauma, but some of that. For sure. Yeah, you're right. You shouldn't be belittling people but that's like you said, that's a cheap tactic to try to win an argument real quick. If I can try to shame and embarrass you at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, shame. Okay. Embarrassed causes the shame. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. No, it's not an easy thing, and it's not it's not black and white, but the problem is it starts to come down to just some of the BS that people start to believe. So, for example, we started by talking about the Acolyte rumor and the rumor about the new Star Wars movie featuring Rey. You get situations where the example that I think about all the time is I was talking to my father one time, and he said, "Hey, what's this I hear about them reshooting the sequels? I heard they're totally throwing all those out and they're redoing them." I said, "Where did you see that?" And he said, "Oh, some guy named Mike Zero or something." And I was like, "Oh my God, we have to talk." But the problem is the algorithm finds these rumors and these false stories, and it does poison the fandom a bit, and it does create falsehood. Maybe honestly,
but I would argue that's bigger than Star Wars, though.
Oh, that's exactly where I was going to go with this. Yep, it's a problem with the media right now, right?
Yeah, I was about to say that's an algorithm issue for sure.
Yep.
Because I mean that's an algorithm issue. And I'll say this: you were talking about people trying to make it political. Two things. Number one, like Jedi has been acknowledged as a religion in a lot of countries.
Mm-hmm.
And I think anytime something becomes religious, they try to make whoever is a part of it tries to make it a political thing. Which is funny because at the base of most people's religions is somewhere in the middle anyway. Mm. And then the other thing is we just gotta take all these political ass meetings out of Star Wars. Like it's only so many senators and counselors that we need to be following around. Like after a while, because as much as I want to be like, yeah, that's crazy that they're making it political. But I mean, the prequels, all these Senate meetings and hearings, and, adjudications, like Star Wars and child support court. Yeah, like what are
trade agreements? Interspace commerce. What are we talking about here?
What are we talking about? Where are the guns in danger?
Well, yeah, and it's funny because I remember that was the challenge again, as I was saying before. When I walked out, I did not love the prequels. I remember reading that opening crawl and going, "What is this?" And so, but they're finding ways to make it all work. If Joe, just so everybody knows, Joe has not watched Andor. I'm sorry, I'm rolling you under the bus, man, because you're a fan, you're a friend of the show, and you haven't watched Andor.
I feel like I'm gonna get beat up when I leave.
Oh yeah, there's people who are right now they're Googling you, they're trying to find you, they're gonna dox you, they're gonna hit you up, they're gonna be like, "What is wrong with Barksdale?" No, but but if you look at it, that is what's kind of cool about Star Wars is there is something for everybody. There's Western style. You get the Mandalorian. You got magic and space wizards, and you got political intrigue, and you got you have a little bit of everything. And I think as long as they keep that going, we'll be in a good spot. So,
well, they have a choice. Any money maker worth their salt would know that, like, hey, this is a multi-headed snake, and we need to make sure we're feeding all heads equally. Like,
100%.
Okay, it doesn't have to be a snake; it can just be any kind of animal. I don't know where snake came from.
but it's true, and that's what they have to keep looking for, is different ways to tell the story. And speaking of which, I'm going to use that as a segue. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about one of the heads of that multi-headed snake. Dude, I'm using your thing, and I'm running with it.
Don't watch Andor.
we are going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about Star Wars video games, and then we're going to take your calls. But we'll be back in 1 minute with more Force Connect on the SSW Network.
Revenge of the Sith Acting Challenge. I play Obi-Wan, you play Anakin. You're the blue line.
No.
Let's go.
No.
You were the chosen one.
No, this is a FaceTime call, buddy. I think
It was said that you would destroy the Sith, not join them.
No, you definitely have the wrong number.
Bring balance to the Force, not leave it in darkness.
I'm not even sure what you're talking about, but thank you for calling. Check who you're trying to call. You got the wrong number, and don't be so upset about it. I'm sorry. You just have the wrong number. It happens. It's happened.
You were my brother, Anakin.
No, I'm not even Anakin, and I don't know who you are.
I loved you.
Oh, hey, easy. Listen, I don't feel the same way. No, don't do that. Don't do that. No, I'm so sorry. I hope you find who you're trying to call, though. Wait, where are you going?
All right, we're back. Thank you for hanging out with us. We see you all in the chat. We know you're excited to join us. We're going to throw that number up in just a minute. Oh, look, Chris Ryans is watching. We didn't give him a shout out, did we? Oh man.
Chris,
we failed.
This is my fault. I just want you to know that.
It was funny, Chris, because before we got on, we said, Joe, we normally have Chris with us as well. And Joe said, don't you mention him. It's in my contract. Don't you mention Ryan's at the show. And I was like, dude, I don't know, man. It's anyway. No, Chris is not with us tonight. And we did say that. But
no, I don't. You know what? It doesn't matter. We can delete this after.
Yeah, we'll just this won't make the podcast stream. But hey, listen. So while we were out, they dropped the new trailer and about 5 minutes of gameplay from Star Wars Outlaws, which is being called the first open world Star Wars game, which is also raising some eyebrows from people who've been playing games from way back in the day. But I think based on sort of the Ubisoft kind of model, I think it certainly falls into that. Nick, when you saw the trailer, when you saw some of the gameplay, what was your take?
I had no idea it was coming. I don't know if anybody knew that it was coming. I was excited, of course, and when I heard that this was going to reportedly be an open world game, that's very exciting because, Fallen Order has a lot of roam around, and I haven't played, Jedi Survivor yet, of course, but I understand that it's a little more open world than what we got before, but you're still following, missions and tasks and that kind of thing. So as somebody who probably hasn't played a Grand Theft Auto since Vice City, but really enjoyed running around doing my own mission. I know, Joe. Listen, I'm old and I'm still rocking a PS4
it's a fly that's flying around.
yeah, okay. Yeah, I like the idea of an open world. I mean, let me go be Star Wars. That was something that was fun with the Skywalker Legacy Saga Lego game that came out back last year. Was it had a little bit more open world-ness to it. I could go run around and do whatever I want. So that part of that is very exciting, and of course, it looks amazing.
Joe, you and I have talked a bit about, and when you were on with us last time, talked about Survivor. When you took a look at what we have coming for Star Wars Outlaws, what's your impression? What's your excitement level? What are you thinking?
Oh, I'm very excited. I mean, Jedi Survivor kind of reminds me more of like the Harry Potter, and I know I'm crossing over fandoms here, but
It's okay. We're all are welcome here.
The Harry Potter games that just came out, and I played the game through twice, and I can't think of the name of it. It's just came out on PS. It came out a couple of anyway. That game and Jedi Survivor remind me a lot of each other in that they're both in big, dense, open like maps, but they're not. Chris,
here's what I don't know. I shouldn't say it.
But like that
Chris
big
is trying
open
not.
map.
Chris is trying not to be upset that we have a new black guy. That's what's going on right now.
Okay, well, since he opened up the door, I guess I'll say what I had to say. It's kind of like a half Sith thing. Like there could be only one. Like
no,
only one there can be. But anyway, why is the other B?
I'm out.
Chris knows we love him, and if Chris hadn't had dental situations this week, Chris would be right here making fun of us for not reading comic books. So,
Chris,
I'll raise a second toast to my friend Chris Ryan.
Yes.
Cheers, and I hope you're feeling
Chris,
better.
you know what time it is. When one black guy gets in the room and he's got white friends, he's got to kick all the other black dudes. I'm gonna be the black friend, Chris. No, I'm gonna be the one they celebrate Kwanzaa with this shit. All right.
Well, welcome to the last episode of Force Connect.
That's right. Glad everybody can show up. Go ahead and drink the rest of
Glad
this
you guys
bottle
could show up for this. A couple weeks after Juneteenth, apparently.
That I'm going to finish this bottle with skull on top after all.
But that's what it is. Like, so those games.
Back to the game.
Those games were like the maps were huge and very detailed. It was fantastic, but it was more of a, you trying to complete all the. If you're a completionist, you find all the things, that kind of thing. Y'all remember when Joe killed Force? But this game, because it's made by Ubisoft too, reminds me more of like an Assassin's Creed or like you were saying, Grand Theft Auto. I didn't know Ubisoft. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know Ubisoft was involved. I got a little bit more excited when I just heard that. I was like, Ubisoft know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they actually have an Assassin's Creed game coming out this year too. But I think it's gonna be. I do think it'll be like the first like true open. Because even when you talk about like you were talking earlier about the games that have come out like a long time, like Knights of the Old Republic and that kind of thing, didn't have the technology, like didn't have this level of computational power when it comes to the game system and stuff like that. So I do think that'll make it like the first of its kind in that matter.
Well, you got things like the ability to literally like get in your ship and fly into space without a cutscene and like go straight into all those pieces.
That means this will not run on PC day one. If y'all don't know it.
Exactly. Now, do you play on PC or do you play on a console?
I play PlayStation when I'm at home. Like that's what I would prefer to play. But I got I still have a Steam Deck, but I just got the ROG Ally, so I play PC handhelds.
Which do you prefer?
I mean, I prefer the PlayStation, but at the same time, like you can take that handheld anywhere. So I think they're good complements to each other. But if I had to pick one, I'd pick the console.
Yeah. And there's something that's just I've played a little bit on PC and I've played on console. And once you play on console, for me, I don't know, I'm kind of like I'm all in on that. And once they were able to figure out how to get RPGs on consoles in a way that was manageable, like the first handful of RPGs that hit the consoles were just not. They were hard to navigate, but I'm pretty happy about that.
And see, I would do an RPG on a handheld. I'm not saying that your opinion is wrong. I'm just, but like as I think about it, like RPGs, yeah, that's definitely one of those. Anyway, it doesn't matter what I would do.
Nice. So we've talked about Outlaws a little bit. We've talked about the excitement for that. We got to see the trailer. We got to see some gameplay. That's something definitely to look forward to. For those of you that have a PS5, which just means I need to like get a paper route or something and save up some pennies to get myself a PlayStation 5.
Only on PS5?
Yeah. That's why I haven't played Survivor yet, because it's PS5 also, and I've got a 4.
Well, but no, this Outlaws will be on all the new consoles.
Oh, yeah. Newer consoles, not just PlayStation.
Next gen.
Yeah.
Xbox and that kind of stuff. PC.
I was like, damn, PlayStation bought out Star
No.
Wars like that. That's, woo.
What that was a
Starfield
very
is-
limited. That was a limited personal perspective because I have a PS4, so that's only where my head goes. That's what it came from.
That makes sense.
But I want to, because we had kind of talked about this during the week and we teased it out on social media, talking about Star Wars video games. There is a long, rich legacy of Star Wars video games. There's more that I'm sure I could name off. And one of my favorite metrics, that whether it's movies, bands, songs, I love to apply this anywhere. I like to call it the Mount Rushmore. What is your Mount Rushmore of X, whatever the thing is? What are the 4 you take with you? So I thought it'd be fun to throw that at us, kind of impromptu. What are the 4 Star Wars video games that you're taking with you? If you're going to an island, if you're carving them into stone, whatever it is. And we're going to ask our callers this when you come on. So be ready with your Star Wars video game Mount Rushmore. I'll go ahead and do mine just because I'm in the big box right now. And I've had more time to think about it than y'all have. Not necessarily in any particular order. As an old guy, as a Gen X guy, the original Star Wars arcade game, the wireframe graphics, it's not good. When they did the 1-up one that came out, a couple years ago that you could buy for your house, like I could see being tired of that after like 10 or 12 minutes of trying to, get those things to line up. But it has a deep emotional connection. Like it was the first it was one of the first video games I ever played. Much less, a first Star Wars video game besides the TV that my parents had that had Pong built into it. And we had the 2 paddles that you like cranked the knob and played ping pong. So I have to go with the original arcade game. The second one that I'm going to go with is I think it was in 98, 97, somewhere in there. Sega did the Star Wars Trilogy arcade game. And I was in college and there was an arcade probably 3 miles from my college at the mall, and I would go up there and they had that whole thing, and you go in there and you had the Death Star version, you had the Hoth battle, and you had the indoor thing, and it was you could play those. That was a big deal. Like that felt a lot like playing some Star Wars.
And they were that was the next step from those ray drawn things into
the line drawings. It
was almost cartoony. It
had good graphic. Although it was funny, like you had the scene, I remember this, like Luke is on the speeder bike and he's in indoor, and when he jumps off the speeder bike, he like goes into slow motion in order for those pixels to like land on the ground and then start walking again, and like some processing speeds there. So my second one is the Sega arcade trilogy that came out in the mid-90s. My third one is also a late 90s special that I got into, I think actually out of college. And this is going to not be popular, but this is another one of those kind of pseudo emotional favorites. Star Wars Masters of Terras Kasi. If you don't remember Masters of Terras Kasi, it was basically like it wanted to be Virtua Fighter, but for Star Wars. And it was a fighting game. It was supposed to be Street Fighter. You got to be Luke or Arden Lin or the Gamorrean Guard or the Tusken Raider. Like it was a terrible game. It wasn't fun. The graphics were weird, but I played the crap out of that game because you got to fight. You got to
like Han Solo versus Gamorrean guards, and it was
correct. And then at some point, like when you played through like the levels, it was Gamorrean Guard versus Gamorrean Guard or Han Solo versus Han Solo. Like again, that was just one of these terrible games that I just loved. I played the crap out of it. And then my final one is Battlefront 2. Battlefront 2 was, Battlefront was great. Battlefront 2 kind of, it took it up, the initial problems it had, I think smoothed out at some point. I still play Battlefront 2. I'll still pull it up and, go play some multiplayer, shoot them up. Again, it's kind of like GoldenEye, but Star Wars. You get to run around, kill a bunch of people online. I'm not good at it, but it's fun and it feels like I'm living a Star Wars. So that would be my Mount Rushmore. Those are the 4 games that I'm, taking with me somewhere. Like I said, some of them are just because they make me happy. It doesn't mean they're good games. There's plenty of games out there that could be on the list. X-Wing versus Starfighter, TIE Fighter, Fallen Order, the Pod Racer game. Like there's a lot of great Star Wars games out there. Bounty Hunters, that was another good one. But those 4 that I mentioned, that's going to be my Mount Rushmore. So that's what I'm going to throw out there for me.
All right, Joe, what do you got for your Mount Rushmore Star Wars games?
I would like to request Just in case anyone's listening that has anything to do with game development, y'all got to bring Rock Band back. Sorry, I was just thinking when you were talking about games that you were emotionally connected with. I'm like, man, I miss Rock Band. Like that's what I would be doing right now in college. Friday night too. Anyway.
Yep.
And I mean, this is in the order. Jedi Survivor. I say Battlefront 2. The Force Unleashed. I'm cheating with this one because they're releasing them as a dual package. So I'm gonna just take, the Force Unleashed.
Yeah.
And the DLC.
There you go. That's all right. 1 and 2.
And I mean, honestly, like this, I know I'm putting a lot of faith in. I'm like, this game that's coming out looks really good, actually, but I'm not. I got to use a proven product. Knights of the Old Republic.
Yeah.
And I'm cheating with that too because they're also releasing that in dual packages now. So,
but it's classic. No. It's interesting that people just still like that game. A lot of people say
Weapon tattooed on my leg.
Yeah, right. You got and I was gonna say a lot of people like call that like one of the best Star Wars stories, period, which is fantastic, which is great.
One of our callers is nodding his head vehemently in agreement, so I'm pretty sure we're gonna hear more about that in a minute.
Man. So my 4 are Racer. I loved Racer. I don't know. Yep. I didn't love Phantom Menace when it first came out, but I loved that game and I played it for forever. The X-Wing series, X-Wing
custom setup in public too.
Yes.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. I love the X-Wing series on PC. I played that one, X-Wing. I played TIE Fighter. I played X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. And if they would release, I liked Squadrons a lot when that came out because it reminded me of it, but it just didn't capture the same magic of that. And maybe it was, and again, it's one of those, I actually ended up downloading it on Steam and I was like, wow, this is really bad. But it's it was ridiculously good at the time. I'll put Jedi Survivor on there for 2 reasons. 1, the game is great, the story is fantastic, and 2, our friend Deborah Wilson just changed the way I look at that game when she was on the show and talked to us about Bode and her feelings about the whole situation. And then finally, I'm going to put Vader Immortal on there on the Oculus Quest.
Oh, nice.
Did you play that, Joe?
Yeah, like as you said that, I was like, how did I forget about Vader Immortal? Oh,
the thing that I loved about that game was it changed the way you look at stormtroopers. Like stormtroopers in the movies are like, oh, they're just these sort of clowns. But the first stormtrooper that gets up in your face, you're like, oh, I can see why these things are scary. And then when you meet up with Vader, and you get the sense of height and you get the sense of scale, it's wild. It's a really fun game. It's one of the few. I don't often play games more than once. Usually, if I finish it, which I normally don't either. But if I finish a game, I don't usually go back to it. I've played Vader Immortal a handful of times just because it's a fun experience and it's short.
Cool. And I think the experience part of that is something else that's neat because Joe mentioned it, kind of talking about the Pod Racer game. Obviously, with Vader Immortal, you're talking about VR and Oculus and that kind of thing. But 2 of the ones that I mentioned, the original Star Wars arcade and then that Sega trilogy in the 90s, they also had the more immersive versions. Like you could sit down inside the booth and hold the controller, and it felt a little bit more like, oh, I'm in an X-Wing cockpit. Or, you're right, the Pod Racer game where you could sit on it and hold the handles like you're playing, one of the motorcycle games or something like that. Like, again, those things that video games can do, I love sitting on my couch and having a drink and playing a game with a control. But if you put a dumb piece of wood over my head and give me a controller that feels like it belongs in a spaceship, all of a sudden there's a little bit of my dumb brain that goes, ooh, I'm really here right now. So like creating that experiential part of it also adds to it, which I think is really, really fun.
100%. And it's really wild because at one point I used to think, well, there haven't been that many Star Wars games. But then when we started thinking about this for the show, I mean, holy cow. I mean, all the way back to what was it, Yoda Adventures? Like it was like literally, it was sort of like, I don't know, it kind of felt like whatever that game was, the little squares, and you were playing it on a piece. Yeah, it just Minesweeper,
Right?
that's it. Yep.
Oh,
It was like the
Minesweeper,
different boxes. Yep. So there's been so many different games, so many really good games, and it's actually you're hard pressed other than the Nintendo game where you had the dance party with Han Solo. And
Got to make that money, baby.
But you're right. Feed that multi-headed snake, right? And
Yeah.
people bought it, and people still talk about it. So, but there really hasn't been too many really, really big misses. I mean, I think there's opinions.
Would you say some of it is because of like they all have to come through Lucasfilms, and that's kind of like quality control that right there? Or
Yeah, and I think that's the difference between that and some of the EU books, right? Some of those EU books did not go through the same process. That's a really good point, Joe. I think there is, they've had to be looked at differently than just about anything else that came out. So that probably contributed quite a bit to it.
Sorry, I feel like I'm just bringing a bunch of Star Wars philosophy. Like, if we can just look at it from this angle, guys. Like,
but you need that because you got Nick and I have been like drinking since work ended, and just like we like Star Wars because we're just. I'm
on crystal meth. We're fine. No, I'm just.
Well, speaking of contributing, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we got a whole bunch of callers waiting to talk. We're going to give you your 2 minutes. We want to hear your Star Wars Mount Rushmore, but we'll be back in just a minute with more Force Connect.
You want
I'm the only one hereabouts who has one. Saying which, how's he gonna pay for all of this?
And we're back from maybe the worst commercial I've put together for this channel. Thank you all for hanging out with us. We got a bunch of people hanging out in the back that want to get to their Star Wars hot takes, their games, their favorite games, their Mount Rushmore of games. So, Nick, I'm just gonna hit the little transition, and you get to bring in our first caller. Here we go.
Let's do it.
Keep your eyes open, huh?
There he is.
The man, the myth, the legend.
I'm doing all right. Watch Honest Clyde, and I'm not here to talk about video games. I got something else more pressing.
Okay, here we go. Go.
I have a Star Wars conspiracy. People are like, who's Snoke? Who's Snoke? I have it, okay? Listen, it is Mutt Williams from Indiana Jones.
What?
Mutt is Snoke. Okay, so I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, so we have interdimensional beings. They leave Akator, right? Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, that's real crazy to never look back into. Someone tells me that Mutt went to like excavate on himself, and then he gets abducted. And then they start to form his body to be more like them. That's why they're all lanky and gray, and they had to carve into his brain. That's why the giant scar. And then when he has to tempt, when he is put into vats to be become more templates for more cloned pickled Snokes, the Emperor makes sure that he can manipulate Kylo Ren. Mutt is vicariously living through Kylo Ren because he's like, oh, your dad looks just like my dad. I want him dead. He tapped into the little bit of, his anger of him not having a real father in his life. Yeah, and y'all thought I was crazy when I was talking about, you don't need to see Snoke back when he was a greaser. Well, he was a greaser. Snoke was a greaser in a former life.
Wait, what?
You weren't there for that episode.
Snoke was a greaser. You talk about like
questions?
Any questions? Too many questions, my friend. Holy cow!
I need a glass of whatever Eric's drinking tonight because it's working way better than anything I've had.
Eric's drinking gasoline. No, I'm
Eric's drinking straight gasoline.
Dude, we love it.
I do like the creativity, though.
I still think there is some credibility to the Zillow Beast thing somewhere. I would love that to happen.
FYI, I do not actually believe this. I just it was an entertaining thought that popped in my head. It was like, oh.
I was going to say, I think you meant to call it Bombadcast with that one. That was.
It's kind of.
Well, I wasn't a guest. I hinted that I was going to be up here tomorrow talking about my Mutt conspiracy. So
that's right.
If they followed it, they followed it, and then they get this treat of Mutt Williams, aka Henry Jones III, is actually Snoke.
Could be. I'm gonna
go ahead and be honest. On the bingo card of things I thought was going to happen tonight, that wasn't close to one of them. So congratulations to you, sir.
That's the win.
That's how it goes.
Yeah, like at least it wasn't incest this time.
Yeah, this is true. This is true.
I'm killing the show. No.
Well, with that, Eric,
the next slogan for the show: Force Connect. At least it's not incest this time.
No, that is one shirt I will not make. I will.
Neither will I.
You're gonna have the Jizz Lover shirt.
What's
Easy,
that?
Angry.
You gonna have the Jizz Lover shirt.
Oh yeah, I did see that shirt.
Angry's taking swings close to home here. We got to back off.
All right, well, Eric, with that, we are going to let you go. Thanks for hanging out, my friend. Keeping the streak alive. We'll talk to you soon. I just don't know. I just don't know. Well, let's bring in another caller so I don't have to think too much more about that because it's my
well,
brain.
Good luck to everybody that attempts to follow that, I guess.
That's awesome. And here we go with our next caller.
Grief Karga said you were coming.
There's a definitive pattern on the show. It goes callers, Eric, and then after Eric is Angry Tasty Cakes, whose beard is becoming more epic every time we see it. It's Ted Kaczynski.
I have been out-bearded. I'm not ashamed to say I have been out-bearded at this point.
I was actually streaming Call of Duty the other day, and someone said Zach Galifianakis, and I went, listen, I'll take that.
There are worse people.
You're damn right it is. Buy some merch.
Click, subscribe, and share. All right, dude, I'm hitting the timer. Let's hear from you.
Yeah, my 4 games are going to be Republic Commando.
Nice.
I feel like that set the groundwork for a lot of like the shooter mechanics that we got in a lot of the other Star Wars games. Plus, the story was fantastic, and it also gave us the novels afterwards.
Yep.
I think second game is going to be Jedi Academy.
Wow. I did not like that one as much as the one before.
I forgot that one too.
Outcast was good because Dasan was a great villain, but I truly like Academy more just based on its overall gameplay. I'm a nerd for games, so I listen. No, and I feel like Kyle Katarn's story really kind of like came to a head in that one, and I was like, all right.
Yep.
If he never comes back, I'm satisfied. If he does, cool. You have another adventure with him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Shadows of the Empire is number 3.
I was just about to say that's a huge. After your time's up, we're going to talk about that again for a minute. Keep going.
Yeah. Okay. And then finally, of course, okay, I'm going to cheat alongside Joe here. KOTOR 1 and 2. And I was the one nodding, by the way. So I feel like that is the best Star Wars story told. And it is by far, I think, the most engaging out of all of the other games. The just the way that it was set up, like the fact that you play one of the most powerful Sith Lords, you know, in galactic history. I know it's not canon anymore, but kind of isn't, gray area, whatever.
They dropped the Darth Vader. I mean, they dropped the Darth Vader lightsaber. It's canon.
Yeah, 100%. That's instant money. That prints cash.
Yeah. But I'm saying like that. But that makes it canon, right? Like if his lightsaber's on sale.
Well, he was mentioned in one of the comics. He is, and he was in Rise of Skywalker as well.
I would say, isn't he one of the statues in Rise of Skywalker on Exegol?
Yeah, and one of the battalions that fight on the Star Destroyer hull is named like the 3rd Revan Battalion or something like that. So he's actually name dropped in there.
Very cool.
Yeah,
it's canon.
Yeah.
Well, so that raises the question. I was on the show Star Wars and Scotch, which I can't believe we didn't think of that name first. But they were talking about, and I'll ask you the question that they asked me, and I'll ask all of us. Do you think when KOTOR comes back with the re-release that they're allegedly working on, that comes and goes, and apparently that just took another major step forward with the hiring of a former executive who worked on some blah, blah, blah. I don't know anything about it, the details. Do you think it comes back as a canon game? Do you think my theory is that's why it's been delayed, is because they want to tie it to Acolyte, they want to tie it to High Republic, they want to tie it to all that stuff, but they want to make sure it's done in a way, because if you bring back KOTOR and you make it canon, you will make so many people happy. So,
honest answer,
yeah,
no.
Okay, fair.
You can't tie it to Acolyte. You can't. Like, you would have 4,000 years worth of storytelling for that to even, like, the mental gymnastics to try and make that happen within 4,000 years of Star Wars history. Just it's too much. Like, I don't even think Dave Filoni's magic hat could make that happen. I think, honestly, to kind of keep expectations tempered, you have to treat KOTOR and KOTOR 2 as its own separate entity. Like, these are their separate stories within the Star Wars canon. If you want, like, if they were to do it, they happened 4,000 years before the Acolyte. They could draw inspiration from other characters like Scion, Nihilus, Kreia, Treya, whatever you want to call them, right? But KOTOR 1 specifically, no. Like, it would be too difficult for them to do that. And if they screw up once, you know damn well,
everybody
that the fandom menace will be all over it. And Saber Interactive, the one that I got tossed to, doesn't have a great track record.
So just make a good game and don't worry so much about
all they have to do is update the visuals. And that's it. They don't have to change much else. It's still one of the most inclusive stories out there. It's one of the most diverse casts out there. They don't have to do much to it. So the fact that it hasn't come out yet, I don't even think it's being worked on right now.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
Wow.
Nick, you had a
on this one.
Yeah. You had a
comment. I just wanted to hit Shadows of the Empire, which Angry mentioned, because that's, again, there's so many that have been named off, and I've watched Joe go, I can't believe I forgot this one, and I'm sitting there going, there's Dark Forces, there's Shadows of the Empire, like there's so many games. Of course, it's an impossible task to whittle it down to 4. That's kind of the fun of, doing it this way. But Shadows of the Empire is one that, especially, and I need to find the link. There's a great YouTube video. It's like 45 minutes or an hour long. It's basically like a long read article about the history of Shadows of the Empire and how that was a really big attempt by Lucasfilm to do a multimedia cross. Like, you have the soundtrack that you can get on vinyl. You've got the novel. You've got the video game. You've got the comic books. Like, the way
the actual book too that came out.
Exactly. Like, you've got, all these different pieces of it that were woven together that felt, a lot of times carries a similar weight and esteem, certainly with older Star Wars fans, that like the original Thrawn trilogy carried. Like, it was another one of those, like, this can be our next Star Wars after Return of the Jedi. Like, it had that feeling and the optimism and just, the sheer weight of it all that went into it. I think that's another one that is probably super underrated. The game, of course, was clunky, but like there was a story there, which is what drove it and made it feel as cool as it was.
It made a bunch of people interested in who the hell Prince Zizor was.
Without a doubt.
Like, if you heard the name, you're like, whatever. But then, like, when you actually like play the game, you're like, okay, I want to know more about this guy.
Yeah.
And the fact that Dash fought IG-88, but that's never mentioned anywhere else, is kind of awesome.
Yeah, it's
Angry's getting called out in the comments.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm such a shill.
There's an animation and everything.
I'm sorry.
Angry is one of the ones who actually joined the Patreon midstream during a show.
That's right. Yeah, we'll never forget that.
We're still paying some dividends on that one.
Well, we'll let Angry go. We'll take a quick break. We have a couple more callers. If you want to call in and join us and talk a little bit about your favorite Star Wars video games, please do. But in the meantime, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Thank you, Angry. We will be back with more Force Connect. And we are back. We are talking about all things Star Wars video games. We are being reminded of games that we can't believe we forgot. We're reliving, we're debating the pluses and the minuses. We're also joined tonight by, unfortunately, Chris Ryans, who is our favorite person on the planet, is unable to join us this evening. But we do have Joe Barksdale with us. Joe, how you doing? Was that
doing good?
Okay.
Stunt double.
Stunt double. Joe. Yes, Joe is the Lateef Crowder of Chris's Pedro Pascal. He is he's in here doing the stunts. But hey, we have been talking about Star Wars video games. We got a couple callers left in tonight's show. So Nick, I'm gonna bring in our next caller. How's that sound?
Let's do it.
Greetings, Exalted One.
Patreon member Jeff Qualio. Jeff, how you doing, bud?
Good evening, fellas.
Shout out to the shirt, Jeff.
Joe, yeah, I wore this for you, Joe. An hour and 5 minutes into the show, and not one mention about them fighting tigers busting Wake Forest ass last night. Just for you, Joe, I brought that ball that Tommy Tanks hit landed in my front yard. This is it.
Oh wow!
So I'm a Bama fan. Roll Tide till I die, baby. But I love LSU baseball, so I wore this in honor of the LSU win last night. Just for you, Joe. Just for you.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you.
And the fact you haven't seen Andor, it ruined it all. So
yeah, I'm sorry, Jeff. It's really,
but that's all right.
Really
Nick said he never played any GTA past Vice City. So after I got up off the floor and shocked myself back into coherence,
All right, Jeff, we're going to start the timer on you, and here we go.
All right. Honorable mention video game: Empire Strikes Back on Atari.
Oh my God!
Everybody remembers that. Yes.
You mean this one?
Yes. I knew Nick wouldn't let me down.
How about that?
Man.
How about that?
That's
all right. Number 4 for me is the Pod Racer game.
Yes.
Now I can't tell you why because my mom's watching. So that's the reason why it's a private discussion. But there's a very good reason why that game is on my Mount Rushmore.
We'll just leave it without his pants on. It's a very disturbing.
No, nothing like that.
It's a crime in 30 states.
Involves mom earmuffs, and I'll tell you why. Number 3 for me was the Force Unleashed games. 1 and 2, I consider them together because they were really the same, except 2. You had 2 lightsabers, but it was all the same combos. Good. It was all the same stuff. Yeah, see? That's why I can't tell you why I like Pod Racer.
Mom's watching. Sorry, Jeff.
Yeah. But anyway, I really like those Force Unleashed games. Number 2 for me was Fallen Order. I, like Nick, do not have the new consoles, so I'm stuck watching Connor's Twitter page, who put really everything about the game on it. So no need to play it now.
Thank you, Connor.
Yeah. So, and for me, the number 1 Star Wars game, in my opinion, is right here. Original PlayStation, Phantom Menace, 2-bit everything. It is such a cheesy game, but it takes you through the entire Phantom Menace. And I wore that game out on PS1. I mean, look, I even got the cheat code still printed in here.
You know what I remember most? What I remember most about that game is the music. Like it pulled all the music, and to this day, I can't even see that cover with that thing.
You are 100% right.
Yep.
Yes, you're 100% right. And even when you had to go around, sorry, I'm going Angry Tasty. I'm taking all night. And so that level where you had to, right before the pod race, you had to go around and find all the missing parts around the town. And then you get all excited because it's the pod race, and then it cuts away, and the next scene, the pod race is ending. And you're like, oh, come on.
So I did all this work for nothing.
Yes, and then you get to see the race. So for all that, this was still my favorite Star Wars game of all time. I said on the Bombad anniversary show that when I die and get buried, this is going to get buried with me in that casket because this game for me was my all-time favorite. Graphics are terrible, but Pete, you said it, the music, playing the storyline of Phantom Menace.
Yep.
And Phantom Menace is one of my favorite Star Wars movies, so it just all ties it in together for me there. So that's my Mount
Rushmore.
Rushmore.
Ask you what you think happens in the afterlife. You getting buried with this game.
Hey, there better be a PS1 up there, man. That's all I'm saying.
I like how he says up there.
Or over there, or down there, or over there, or wherever I go. And there's going to be a wired controller too, because PS1s didn't have no wireless, so you had to sit close to it because the wire, the cable was only 3 feet long. OGs know.
Jeff, dude, thank you so much for joining us once again. Thanks for being
good to see you guys. Joe, good to see you, man. Go Tigers. Roll Tide.
All right. Talk to you soon.
I don't know how I knew that Jeff was going to mention the Empire Strikes Back Atari game, but it does always sit right here on my desk, so it was an easy pull. Because I grabbed that, I do have to also add another honorable mention of my own. The Star Wars NES cartridge that I still have in the box, the whole thing.
Was that yours when you were a kid?
No, it wasn't. I bought this on eBay, but I bought it on eBay literally for like $8. Like it was a steal. Came with the box. It actually has the another classic of NES. Kids our age. It had the plastic sleeve that it went in.
Oh man!
And it came. So my NES doesn't work. It's over here off to the side. But oh wait, even better. This is your walk down memory lane.
Oh, what is that?
The Starmada hanger.
Yeah.
Outertainment, and then it had on the back how you could order the jackets and all the stuff that came with it. The TIE Fighter, Darth Vader, sweatshirt, Star Wars Space Scene t-shirt is what it's called. Yeah. So for $8, it's not a bad snag on eBay. Just
that's a good
shelf.
deal. Joe, were you an NES kid? Oh, we lost your mic, Joe. Are you muted?
You're muted, Joe, or we lost you.
Oh no!
Uh-oh. Might be time for the car insurance headset.
Well, while we wait for Joe to see what he can do there, why don't we bring in our last caller of the night?
Hello.
JD with his weird space friend shirt on. JD, what's up, man? How are you?
How's it going, fellas?
Good. Joe, did you get your mic fixed?
Yeah,
cheers.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
There
hear
he
you.
is.
All right, cool.
All right.
Hey, Joe.
How you doing, JD?
Hey, how's it going, buddy?
Doing good. How about yourself?
Good.
Well,
JD, I'm excited to hear from JD on this call because JD is a fella of Pete and I's age and age range. So I want to hear what your Star Wars video game takes are, because I know you play newer stuff, but you also grew up in the time period frame that we did. So what do you have for us as far as Star Wars video games?
So I agree on the original arcade game. Love that one. That one was great. Battlefront 2, I literally wore out the game on video systems. Literally wore it out. Mine would be KOTOR as well, because KOTOR, I mean, you can't have a video game discussion about Star Wars and not have KOTOR.
Yep.
And I see Jeff's Phantom Menace, I see Nick's game, and I raise you the original open world Star Wars game, Star Wars
Galaxies. Yeah,
there it is.
I literally played this game for 36 hours straight one day.
Yep. Yep. What year did that come out again? What was that? Was that like 90?
Oh man, I'll bet there's a freaking.
Yeah, I got
it. 2003.
2003. Okay. Yes.
2003.
I remember. So I remember sitting in I had like a room for my computer, and I remember just literally like you. I don't know if I did 36 straight, but I had some extremely long nights playing that game. And that's so live.
I mean, name another Star Wars game where you can have your own house and literally have trophies, and you can build it however you want.
Yep.
I mean, you can't do that.
Yep. No, and I was talking to somebody recently. There's still entire communities out there still playing that game 20 years later.
There's a private group that took the game over, and they've upgraded it, and they're still running the game in its original content the way it came out in 2003. And I mean, I'm kind of sad that I don't have a PC so I can go out and play it with them.
Right.
But I can't handle 36 hours of game.
But that's one of those games where I would love to go and try it again and just do it again, because it was just so many great memories. But my gosh, it would just suck the life out of me, the time that I just don't have. So, but yeah, wow, that's great. Are you looking forward to Outlaws?
Yes. Outside of Star Wars, one of my favorite game series is the Assassin's Creed series.
Yep.
And if you don't argue and you don't confirm that Assassin's Creed Black Flag is the greatest open world video game ever made, you're just wrong. You're wrong. Wrong. And so, I mean, the fact that Ubisoft.
It's not better.
Come on, Joe. Come on, Joe. Come on. Feed me, buddy. Come on.
It's not better. I was never a fan of the ships. Like I'm trying to be on land killing people. I'm not a pirate. This isn't. That's just me, though. These are just my opinions.
Let me guess. You kept falling off the mast into the water.
No, honestly, I stopped playing the game. I was like, I can't get past these ship scenes. You know what I did? I went and watched somebody else play through it on YouTube. That's how much. So I'm up to date with the story, but I can't do this. I can't do the pirate ships.
That's funny. It's amazing.
Love it.
Honestly,
everybody that calls in today, but
I think Ubisoft has such a great record with the Assassin's Creed series. I played every one of their games. I played every one in the series, all of them, and I'm excited to see what they do with Star Wars. I mean, being that it's going to be through them, and how great it was through Assassin's Creed, I think it's going to be a phenomenal game. And the gameplay that I saw the other day, I'm like, yeah, I'm here for it. So I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I don't know. I just like it just looks great. And it's, and I think it's going to be, I was worried at first that it was going to be very much like sort of Survivor, but the fact that it is Ubisoft, I think that's going to break it up a little bit, different type of gameplay. So, but yeah, so great. Well, cool. Well, thanks, awesome. JD. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for giving us your insight. And one day we'll have to have a lightsaber off between you and Joe, because Joe's got a ton of lightsabers, and I know you have a ton of lightsabers. And,
that's right. They're all hiding right back there.
Could get ugly.
Hey, Joe, I got custom ones sitting on the shelf, buddy. We can handle it, buddy. we can take care of business.
We can definitely just team up. We don't have to fight each other.
Hey, I'll stand with you, buddy. It's all good.
All right, my friend. Thank you so much for calling in.
Awesome.
We'll see you again soon.
Cheers.
That was great, Joe. Thanks for for hanging in with us all night, talking video games, talking all this stuff, man.
Thanks for having me.
You are welcome back anytime. You can hang out. Where can people find you on the social medias?
At JBDale72 is where I'm at on Instagram. I'm on Instagram the most, so make it easy for you. JBDale72.
And do you have any comedy shows coming up?
Yeah, I mean, these aren't like shows at the Hollywood Improv or anything like that, but yeah, like, I got a show next week. I'm actually going. I've been selected for a comedy festival that's in August, and I'll be recording a special this fall in Detroit. Nice. So, yeah, rolling with that.
That's awesome. Well, we wish you nothing but the best of luck with that. Nick, do we have anything going on? We do have something going on for Around the Galaxy, right? We have we have an interview on Monday. I'm going to look up who it is exactly. We got a bunch coming up. Some shill. Yeah, we only talk to shills here on the.
I'm really glad that you said we have an interview coming up on Monday because I'm going to be perfect.
I didn't hit that on purpose. Was that
That's
me?
right. It's the way it goes.
Oh, I was like, cut him off real quick.
That's right. Shut that redneck right down. The best thing to do is go to the SSWNetwork.com. You can find us on social media, find the merch, find links to the podcast. We do still have up our most recent Around the Galaxy episode was with W. Earl Brown. If you don't know W. Earl Brown, he played Dan Doherty in Deadwood, the bartender. And I love the show Deadwood, of course. I've talked about this a million times. And he also played the Weequay bartender in The Mandalorian to Timothy Oliphant's Cobb Vanth the Marshal, because Timothy Oliphant was also the sheriff in Deadwood. So it was this great synergy. And W. Earl Brown tells us the story of how he got cast, gets in there. And basically, Jon Favreau said, we didn't intentionally recreate Deadwood in space, but it ended up happening that way. Great conversation. He's a huge Star Wars fan. He's a musician. He's tons and tons of fun. So that is in the podcast feed right now. You can go download that and check it out. I encourage you to. And if you don't know W. Earl Brown from Deadwood or The Mandalorian, you may know that he was in Scream. I believe he was Kenny in Scream, the cameraman.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Also, he is Warren, who is Cameron Diaz's brother in Something About Mary. Have you seen My Baseball? He's that guy. He's been in literally everything you've ever seen. And he was the voice actor for Bill in the Last of Us video game. That part played by Nick Offerman in the HBO show. So super great guy, super great interview. And I know we've got some other interviews that we are dancing around and getting scheduled. But Pete, did you figure out what you needed to figure out?
I did not, but I appreciate you talking for as long as you did. Look, if you're a patron, you're going to find out in the next day or two because I'm going to have to post it. So I can tell you, I don't. The problem is I don't remember the name, but I do remember what it is. It's who it is. It's the author of the unauthorized 40th anniversary behind the scenes book of Return of the Jedi. And unfortunately, I can't recall his name, and I feel horrible about that. He's not watching. So that doesn't matter. He's not gonna. He's probably gonna. We're gonna get on with him on Mondays, and he'll. I watched your last show. And
you didn't know my name.
You didn't know who I was. You guys are a couple of assholes, and I'm not going to do your show now. But we would have that coming. But yeah, so that, and of course, it's 3 months away, but that's going to come quick. We have Podathon on the way, and we will be starting to drop some details. We have some new friends involved. We have some old friends involved, but we have some big plans for Podathon 23. So with that, Joe, thanks so much for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. This was a ton of fun. We'll have you on again anytime you want to come on. And Nick, may the force be with you.
Always.
Just one more round, friend, then homeward bound, friend. Don't forget me in your dreams. Just one more song, friend, and then so long, friend. The nights get shorter, it seems. Just one more rhyme, friend. Yes, it's a crime, friend. But you know time, friend. Time can fly. So it's good night, friend. Good night, but not goodbye.